Hello, everybody. EJ Schultz here, news editor at Ad Age, and welcome to the latest edition of our monthly look at purpose marketing hits and misses. Joining me today is our regular guest, Thomas Kolster, who is the founder and creative director at Copenhagen-based Goodvertising Agency, which advises companies and organizations on how to turn environmental, societal, and health risks into market opportunities. Welcome, Thomas.
So good to see you, EJ.
It's been a few weeks. We're back at it. For those who have not watched this before, the way this works is we're going to review 6 ads. We're going to set up the ad quickly, show it. You're going to give your take on it. But for this episode, we really want to encourage folks to weigh in the comments, and we'll try to answer your questions, respond to your feedback. Don't be shy. If you disagree with us, we are not going to hurt our feelings. So let's get started. Let's not waste any more time. Our first ad comes from the in-house agency of Wonderful Pistachios, which has a new campaign out. It's called the Don't Hold Back Snack. And this approach is designed to combat the perception that snacking is inherently bad. Let's watch one of the ads, which is called Bear Hug.
I put myself in a bear hug to keep from snacking.
You should try Wonderful Pistachios. They're tasty and healthy.
That honey?
Sure is.
Run.
So this spot doesn't fit in the traditional definition of a so-called purpose ad because it's not really advocating for something larger than just basically eating wonderful pistachios. But why did you pick this ad for us to review, Thomas? And do you like it or do you not like it? Is this a hit or a miss?
Exactly, EJ. No, I do think it does hit the scope of purpose though, because these guys are trying to encourage us to maybe snack a little bit healthier. And what I loved about it was that they take what the traditional snack industry is sort of very good at, applying humor. Personal favorites of mine could be Skittles, and it sort of has that dark humor of Skittles. And that way, I think it's quite a nice, clever way of making us think about eating something that's just slightly healthier. And I mean, just the opening little shot with the bear hug, I mean, that's just perfect. So I think it does it really well, just because it's purpose, just because it's about healthy living. It does need to be boring.
Yeah, are you finding a lot of these? I mean, obviously every brand, so many brands these days in the snacking category are trying to position themselves as healthy. Do you find that a lot of those brands are kind of going over the top and like throwing out all these information we don't necessarily need? This is a funnier way to do it.
I mean, let's be honest. I think it's not an easy category to talk about health just in general, man. Your average potato chips company aren't that healthy, even though they are cutting down on sugars and fats, etc. I think what Wonderful is trying to do, at least, is in some of the categories that they're in, they are trying to offer us slightly healthier options. So it's part of the mother company's purpose. And I think these guys are doing it in an inspiring, fun way. And what more can we ask for our ads? At least just a slight little laugh, and maybe that will help us think about not eating something that's too fat or too sugary.
All right, let's move on to our next one. It's another in-house ad. It's for Lego, and it's called She Built That. And it aims at challenging, in the brand's words, quote, societal stereotypes that can stifle the potential of girls and inspire the next generation of female builders. The brand made a music video that reimagines a Run DMC classic, It's Like That, and Run DMC members are actually very involved in this campaign, as you will see, as well as the brand employed some young creators that Lego calls the Global Girls Crew, which has appeal with Gen Alpha and Gen Z. Let's take a look at this one.
Yo, 1, 2. You ready? Yeah.
Girls, it's time to show them what we mean.
And it goes a little something like this. She's not bossy, she's been busy, yeah, that's no lie. She's been dreaming, she's been making, she's been born to fly. Don't ask me, because I don't know how. but she built that, and that's the way it is. She built that, and that's the way it is. She built that, and that's the way it is. She built that, that's right, and that's the way it is. She built that, and that's the way it is. And that's the way it is. And that's the way it is. Girls in the world, yeah, we're hustling hard. Building rockets, bridges, dresses, all things pretty and odd. Building is the key to end all her woes.
She built that.
And that's the way it is. She built that. And that's the way it is. She built that. And that's the way it is. She
Built that. And that's how it's done.
She built that. That's right. And that's the way it is.
So this goes on for a little while longer. We'll leave it playing in the background while we talk about it. Thomas, what's your take on this one? Hit or miss?
You know, I'm just so curious to see what our audience thinks about this one, to be honest. You know, Lego is definitely one of those companies that I'll say got a clear purpose, and also, you know, it's from my neck of the woods. It's a Danish company. They got a legendary tune there that I think all of us growing up around that time absolutely love and probably even have danced to. Where I think they don't get this right is basically, I just lack a bit of emotionality. I just sit there feeling like I'm a bit of a passenger on this sort of moving Lego train. It just seems like the brand is trying too hard to be youthful. And yeah, disclaimer, I'm not a 14-year-old girl, so maybe this might actually really hit right with the target audience, but that really sort of bothered me. And again, I mean, one of the big competitors to Lego would be a company like Mattel, who, you know, hands down have succeeded with this. So I think sometimes Lego do what they shouldn't be doing, and it's trying to be too much on collaborations, mainstream. I think that's where they failed the last time, and when they got away from the purpose and they focused on sort of, you know, working with big legacy brands, you know, legacy franchises, Star Wars, etc. So I think sometimes it's getting more back to the core of what Lego is about. Do they have permission to speak about this? Absolutely. They invest heavily in women, girls' education, etc. So it's not that. I just think it just doesn't really hit the mark. But that's just me. Maybe our audience disagrees.
I do have a 6-year-old daughter who I know probably would have been excited about the Frozen cameo in there. But before we move on, and we do have a comment from Olivia on LinkedIn who says, I feel like the gymnasium sequence exists to string together a bunch of 30s and 6-second ads. So that's her read on this. Before we move on, I want to point out, in fairness to Lego, that they did back this with some actual surveying of folks and kind of outlining the problem they're trying to solve here, is which they quizzed something like 32,000 parents and children across 21 countries and found that 80% of those adults polled believe society still views boys as naturally better than girls, but then boys builders naturally better than girls. And as a result, girls and moms often undervalue their own building skills compared to boys and dads. So, you know, clearly they're trying to go after something that needs some more dialogue. But one more comment before we move on from Amber, who said the concept is great, it's cute, and I see what they wanted to do, but they didn't connect to the core of building. So kind of to your point a little bit there, Thomas, with that feedback.
Yeah, thank you, Amber. And again, I mean, I think this is good, but obviously what we want to share is also the pathway to great. So I definitely don't criticize them for any of the foundational stuff. They got that right. And this is where most brands fail. So still a big kudos to Lego for doing this ad.
All right, let's move on to Porsche, which has a big name celeb in this campaign to help direct. Dua Lipa they employed to help actually direct a spot for its electric Porsche Macan. This has actually been out for a while. And when they announced the ad, they had a Dua Lipa comment along with it. And she said, nothing was too far-fetched or off the table. So they really let me run wild with it. So let's see how Dua Lipa directed this ad.
So wait, what you're asking me is, how would I direct a Porsche ad? Okay, So I'm in the car, driving, obviously, but it's night, and it's misty, and it's raining. Or maybe not, never mind. Suddenly, I'm being chased. Because we want all the cool car shots, right? Okay, here you go. Cut, quick wash. Now, I'm back in the city. I'm with all my friends. And when I say all my friends, I mean all my friends. And then, racetrack, baby. Because Porsche, it's me versus me. I think I got this. But it'll be close. Okay, enough racing. Now, drama.
So we'll let that one keep playing too in the background. She didn't do it all by herself. There was actually an agency involved in this, and there was, I think, also another director. But the agency was Grabars and Partner. Thomas, what do you think of this one?
I mean, generally, I sometimes have a hard time when you introduce celebrities that are so big, like Dua Lipa, but to what I think David Ogilvy once said, people might remember the celebrity, but they might not remember the brand that's involved here. But I think what they've actually succeeded doing is taking a celebrity that seems very genuine in terms of the cause. I mean, she's been very outspoken about unequal opportunities in the music industry. And I think tying that bigger story into the car industry where, let's be honest, when I started in advertising, what we mostly would be seeing is a guy driving a Porsche. Next to that guy would be sitting a very beautiful woman. So I think in that way, it's very clever of Porsche. And also talking about purpose here, I think what they succeed doing is using purpose to refresh the brand and attract a new target group. And I think that's quite clever in these days where we talk a lot about purpose. I think it's one of those things that, if done right, can really succeed delivering some interesting results for the brand.
So you clearly think it's a hit, and so do a couple of our viewers, at least. Ray says, I'd buy this one, more on point with the brand. And Aileen says, I love this one. But Ray also follows up and says, lacks any brand heritage. It's another car commercial. Could have been for BMW, Audi, or even Buick. So there is that criticism.
Yeah, and I think one criticism that's also might be worth just noticing is that Porsche, in fact, is not necessarily doing that great on diversity and inclusion. They have one woman in an 8-person board, so definitely not on par with what you'd be expecting for them. Yeah, so there's still some way to go on the internal lines as well for Porsche, but I think this is it's a good cause. It feels for me at least well aligned, and I think Dua Lipa really does a good job here in delivering something that seems value aligned.
All right, let's move on to our next ad for Celsius energy drink. It comes from Anomaly, which I believe recently won this account. The spot is called Live Fit Go, and it attempts to, in the brand's words, quote, inject deeper meaning into its mantra, connecting with people across everyday moments to live with an intended purpose. Let's watch.
It starts with Celsius. Feel I can feel good about. I'm gonna need it. I'm training for life. From after-school pickups to meal prep to a 12-hour night shift. I don't have time to get ready. I've got to stay ready.
Dawn Patrol starts with a Celsius. I got a whole day to seize. First it's cardio, then it's a race against the clock. Refuel. I've got 48 to do in 24.
It's 4:49 a.m. Grab a Celsius, lock in. I've got a goal to hit and a deck to conquer. A party to be the life of and all the essential energy I need to do it.
Okay, Thomas, what's your take on this one?
Oh, God. I think you gave it quite a cliffhanger there to begin with. I mean, that, sort of intentional purpose doesn't really connect with me. It kind of feels like a flat fizzy drinks in some ways, and even just the slogan, a little bit like it's been audio generated. It just doesn't connect with me. I think one of the key challenges here is it doesn't really feel like it has an insight. any emotional strings to pull here. So I think it's one of those purpose works that seem more like purpose washing than actually delivering anything meaningful to the brand. They say the right thing, they show the right thing, but just doesn't seem that genuine, to be honest.
I think they're trying to reflect the market reality of energy drinks kind of moving way beyond the initial sort of appeal of them, which was kind of the Monster, Monster Energy, that kind of approach with energy drinks, which was a lot different, much more niche. But in your view, it didn't connect.
I mean, you're up against a legacy brand like Red Bull, and when you see what these guys are doing and how they're actually inspiring people to push boundaries, I think this kind of feels, a little bit.
One of our viewers, Jenny, agrees with you. Says this feels like a strategy deck.
Made come alive by AI. Thank you, Jenny.
Rob says, great commercial for Celsius, but not sure how it's purpose driven. I think they were trying to suggest that you drink Celsius, you can live a better life. I mean, that's probably exaggerating a little bit, but that's essentially what I got from it.
Exactly.
So let's move on to the next ad. So while this is an interesting one, comes from the travel magazine Unquiet, and the effort is called Uncomfortable Nature Sounds, and it turns soothing nature recordings we're all familiar with into something much different in attempt to raise awareness for climate change. The video comes from Brazilian agency Tech and Soul.
Close your eyes, take a deep breath, feel the peace of nature around you. Millions of people use sounds of nature to calm down, meditate, and sleep. But in the real world, nature is anything but comforting. It's growing unpredictable, increasingly threatened. Unquiet, a magazine that inspires conscious travel, decided to turn tranquility into urgency. Introducing Uncomfortable Nature Sounds. Real sounds of nature, but for the first time, as it truly is, screaming for help. Using a new artificial intelligence, we extracted audio from news reports.
O tamanho dos incêndios neste ano surpreende pantaneiros e pesquisadores.
And recreated the sounds from the latest natural disasters.
Welcome to the sounds of nature with Unquiet. You are in the Brazilian Pantanal, with a comfortable fire crackling in front of you. Year after year, climate change transforms the world, just like it did in 2024 with the wildfires in the Brazilian Pantanal.
The tracks were released across all major audio and video platforms. Thousands of people listened, shared, and reported. Politicians and decision-makers took notice. The experience turned what was intangible into something impossible to ignore. The impact of climate change. Uncomfortable Nature Sounds by Unquiet magazine.
All right, Thomas, since we've been doing this, we've looked at a lot of ads that have sort of showed the horrors of climate change. This is a very unique approach to that, but what did you think of it?
Yeah, I can see, our viewers seems to be very much loving it as well. And even this little suggested about maybe Mark Riviere using a remix of him. I'm not a big fan at all. I think we are doing the climate movement a disfavor. You're not telling people anything new. It's not like, unless you've been living under a rock the last 20 years, that you don't know wildfires is a thing. So I think we sometimes forget what it is that we want to try and achieve with this type of messaging. we're speaking to the converted already. We are taking a tokenistic approach to something that's incredibly important. So instead of telling people something new, something fresh, something exciting, something we could do, I think it just plays on generic climate messaging. And so for me, it's a bit disappointing that somebody who should know better, it's a sustainable travel agency, probably should know the issue better, and being able to maybe create a piece of communication that maybe shines a light on that in a more interesting way. They got our ears, and we have a lot of time to take in some interesting content, and I think they missed that opportunity. I think it's not a, yeah.
Like you said, we have a few people that disagree with you. Benji says it was a really good hook of something I was expecting, and then flipping it on its head. Amber says, I love it. Anonymous says, I'm wondering why they produced the first part in mono and then went to color and then back to mono with a spot color. So some critiques of the production approach. Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm wondering what the call to action here is too. I know that's one of your themes as we look at a lot of these kind of purpose ads is what are you asking the viewer to do? Is there anything here that you think they're asking people to do?
No, and I think also, again, I think the target group that they're trying to aim for is a pretty educated bunch of folks. I think if they're trying to, I don't even know who doesn't know about wildfires these days. So I think they could have used that listening opportunity to something even bigger and more powerful. And it's the thing I often see in climate space, that we end up just focusing on the sort of immediate tokenistic efforts like recycling plastic bags, PT bottles, limiting food waste. But I think we have moved on from those early types of communications. And it's about time that we grow up and actually take some more meaningful messages in there and teach people something new. I think when you serve a new information to people, they instantaneously get curious. This for me is not really shareable. I know this. It's basic.
Bill raises a good question. He says it's okay, but how does it support the Unquiet brand? There really is nothing in there, right?
Yeah,
there was a mention of AI. It's a use of AI in advertising, which is a whole nother conversation. All right, let's move on. We're already to our final ad for today. It's called Do Energy Differently. It's for the UK energy company OVO. And the ad brings actually appliances to life in an attempt to dramatize how people can take better control of their energy use with some of the offerings from this energy company, including its rewards program that gives discounts for using greener energy sources. Let's watch this spot, which comes from Saatchi & Saatchi London.
With OVO, you can take charge of your energy. OVO, do energy differently.
All right, Thomas, what's your view on this one?
As we mentioned with some of the other ads, I think what we want to have is a bit of an emotional impact. And for most folks, energy bills probably aren't the most emotional stuff you can look at in your life. So I think it really succeeds from the very first frame in pulling us in. It sort of reminds me a little bit of for any advertising buffs out there, the Reebok ad, Belly's Gonna Get You. It got a little bit of that feel. So quite often when we look at purpose ads, sustainability ads, they do work because they have that emotional impact. These are emotionally charged subjects. And yes, admittedly, obviously in times where there's a cost of living crisis, energy prices going up, it can maybe or even feel like those energy bills are going to cost you your life. So I think it's a fun, creative, it pulls you in, and I think that's more than you can ask for from an energy company. So well done to those guys.
Here's my question on this one, though. I'm not that familiar with this company. They don't really tell me how they can help solve this issue, right? Did I miss that?
I think what they wanted to point us to is that app, in fact, is sort of the key way of running sort of like a smart home version, and in that way, sort of taking charge of your energy, which is becoming more and more standard in most European countries. You'll get an immediate overview of the energy usage of your home and how you can improve that. So I think that's what they're trying to look at. Why we have all these different appliances.
We have another viewer comment. Randolph Ramirez says, "Well, visually cool and kind of fun. It's been done to death. I've seen this variation of this every 6 months since I was a child." You know, it's funny because I couldn't put my finger on it. I feel like we reviewed an ad that was very similar to this, and I couldn't remember what it was. But so I'm glad someone else points that out.
Yeah, thank you, Randolph, and Con, I agree. That's also why I wanted to bring the attention to the good old Reebok ad, which I think mastered that really, really well. And that's probably 15 years ago, but it still works.
So we've made it through our ads. We have a little bit of time left. If anyone else, I know that the Lego ad got a lot of feedback. If anyone else wants to weigh in on anything we viewed today or ask Thomas a more general question about sort of the direction of purpose marketing. I think you just got back from Cannes, so I'm sure you're full of opinions right now.
Probably I could need a bit of a beer hug, in fact, as well, just to slowly recover. I think there was a good market review ad there. I always love how creative people become in these sessions. There's a lot of good input here, so thank you for sharing all of that.
We had one more feedback on the OVO ad who said, "I think the music was spot on. It's generational." I'm sorry, this is probably on the Lego ad. I correct myself. Sorry about that. Yeah, I mean, how can you argue with Run DMC, right?
Exactly. And, you know, I think another thing that we saw both in the Porsche ad and which we saw in the Lego ad, and I think is becoming a bigger and bigger trend also coming back from Ken Lyons, is collaborations. And I think in many ways, it adds authenticity to all the different players that's involved with this. So I think it's also in terms of getting a broader impact and hitting more people, engaging more people, which I think is the key difficulty around some of these topics. As I pointed out with the climate one, it's not that I don't like it. I just think that it's not really the best use of ad budget in terms of the crowd that they want to reach.
Ted Sabarisi is going to put you on the spot. What was your favorite ad that you saw at Cannes or that got a lot of buzz? I think a lot of the Grand Prix winners actually had some purpose DNA in them for sure, which is not all that unusual at Cannes. But did anything really stick out to you? Obviously, you've probably seen a lot of the work coming into it, but did you see anything differently there?
I think there was a lot of great ads, and you're absolutely right, EJ. I think across all the Grand Prix, a lot of those really had purpose at the heart of it. There was actually one ad that sort of sparked my imagination a little bit with, which was L'Oreal. This was a longer content piece that dwelled into the story behind I'm Worth It by L'Oreal, because I think in these times where there's a pushback against purpose, I think that one really delivered a very, very powerful business case why this actually truly matters. So if you haven't watched this longer format content, it's really worth watching. So that one was for me eye-opening. And then the use of humor across so many of the, especially commercials, looking at pretty tough doom and gloom topics, even herpes. There was a really, really interesting case from New Zealand around that. So a lot of good stuff coming out of Cannes this year. So I'm quite excited about that.
I'd remind our viewers we have plenty of coverage of Cannes still at adage.com. We're still sort of digesting everything that happened there, so you can check that out. Before we go, I did have one last question for you, which is from Anne Morales, who says, what's your criteria to label it a purpose ad for these sessions?
That's a very, very good question. And purpose is an ever-evolving discipline. I do feel that purpose has changed very much over the years from being a purpose that's very much the brand being the agent of change to now today much more being pulling us in as agents of change. So typically what I view as purpose is if they have a very clear formulation of the change that they want to achieve in our lives, and that's typically what I would measure it up against. And that's also why you would see in the beginning of the segment we had this healthy ad from wonderful Pistachios. If you have brands that want to inspire us to live healthier, I think that's a very clear purpose, and something that I want to acknowledge.
All right,
Good question, Anna.
We're about out of time. I want to thank everyone that's watching us for weighing in, and thank you, Thomas, again, for your perspective and feedback on this work. Again, that was Thomas Kolster of Goodvertising Agency. I'm EJ Schultz, news editor at Ad Age. I want to thank our producer, Lauren Chardio. We'll post a recap of this episode at adage.com, so keep an eye out for that. And we look forward to seeing you all again for our next episode of Purpose Marketing Hits and Misses. We'll catch you next time.